with me now on all of this is Heritage Foundation's Riley Walters. Riley, thank you for joining us. Let me ask you first to react to all of that. I mean, companies are really having to tiptoe around this issue. They want to keep the markets open, but at the same time, you know, they face criticism for not saying something, I would imagine, as well.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen this over the past year. We've seen companies kind of try and find a balance between their financial interests in China and sort of their home interests back here in the United States. And it's created a lot of controversy for them. Certainly, I mean, we could criticize them a lot for this, and I think we should at the end of the day. But, you know, when it comes to Hong Kong, it is a politically sensitive issue. But you know, really, at the end of the day, Hong Kong too is also a Hong Kong issue, less of a business issue.
Yeah. So what do you make? How do you think that this finally plays out when you look at the story that came before you with Greg Palcott and these protests just going on and on and on? How do you think that this finally ends? And did you think it would go on this long?
It certainly is surprising that it's gone on for almost 4 months now. You know, there's no clear end in sight. It's pretty obvious that the people of Hong Kong are pretty dissatisfied with the government in Hong Kong. They don't feel like they're adequately represented. And so to find a way around that, I mean, certainly I think it comes from a change at the top potentially within Hong Kong's government. But you know, finding a resolution between the two can be difficult, especially actually as aggressive protests in Hong Kong actually go on the rise. It makes things a little bit more difficult to negotiate. Yeah,
you look at companies like South Park, for example, you know, got scrubbed from the internet in China, I believe, and you know, now they're kind of poking fun at them and doing a fake apology, and it's all kind of fun and games, but it kind of reminds you of the movie that poked fun at North Korea, and then Sony Studios ended up getting hacked. Like, you know, comedians get involved, but these are real international issues. What's your take?
Yeah, so, you know, Beijing is pretty, Beijing doesn't really like being criticized through popular culture. I mean, I think South Park can join a long, prestigious list along with Winnie Pooh, Katy Perry, and Brad Pitt as several that are actually blocked within China because they've either done things that have been critical of Beijing or just done things that Beijing doesn't like. So I think if anything, it's almost a badge of honor these days to be blocked outside of China, even though it might not be financially beneficial for those companies. There's still I think a little bit of pride that these companies can take out of that.
Yeah, well, unless you're the NBA. I mean, right. It doesn't work that way for them because they're obviously trying to please a huge audience. What advice would you even give them? Because, I mean, the NBA is huge there. Do they want to, but then they're being criticized for putting money ahead of human rights?
Yeah, it is difficult for these large corporations that do have more of an emphasis on protecting their shareholders' interests. So, you know, being profitable at the end of the day. You know, recommendations for them, it's very hard to do. Usually silence is the best issue. I guess silence is the best, the recommendation to make, I think, on this. But, you know, it can be pretty difficult, especially when they're called out sometimes, or when sometimes you have an employee within the company become a little bit more vocal on these issues, which might complicate things in the future.
Yeah. Well, we will see. This issue has obviously stretched on a lot longer than we thought, and it becomes tangled with the trade deal that the U.S. is trying to do with China as well. And as you hear senators chime in and say that, you know, we should be doing more on the Hong Kong side, you also keep in mind that we have a lot of people and farmers that are suffering from this trade impasse. So a lot of things that really go together. Riley Walters from the Heritage Foundation, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.